Welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't African, the talk show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the African American didn't find his way to America locked in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, Buck Wylam. Today we're going to talk about African Americans in the environment, but before we get into that, I just want to say if you hear noise in the background, we're having some storms down here in the south. Tornado watches is coming through, so you might hear a lot of sirens in the background letting us know that tornadoes are coming through. A lot of noise in the back. People are trying to get to certain areas, but we're still going to go through. I want to apologize for missing the last 3 weeks. Last week and a half. Did a cross-country trip over to Arizona, Memphis, and Dallas. And in these cities, we dying, y'all. We dying. We are being wiped off the face of the planet, and it seems that we're the main ones who's pressing the button to go forward. So as we talk tonight, all callers, want to get your feedback and let us know the cities that you're coming from, because what's going on. I'll be posting some pictures in the African Americans Ain't African chat room on Facebook. They spraying Memphis heavy. Memphis is getting a heavy dose of spraying. It's not that many brothers and sisters on the West Coast no more. The Hispanics have moved in and really taken over there. It's a few of us still there, but not like we have on the East Coast and down south. Tonight we're going to talk about African Americans' relationship to the environment. What's our play in the environment, and what's our role in the environment? What are we doing about the environment, and do we even care? Joining me as always is my co-host Rick Moon. And how you doing today, Rick?
I'm doing pretty good, Buck, and hello to all the good folks out there. I hope you can tune in for the show, and hope you can learn something out of this. I think it's very important that we do this show.
Well, Rick, you going to the Clippers game tonight?
No, man. I mean, since we're doing the show tonight, I can't make it. But if the Clippers can find a way, because I really think it's over for them. But if they can find a way to get Game 7, I want to go, because I'm going to put on some white face when I go there. And not because of what Donald Stern has said. I'm not, he's just another old racist white boy. I'm talking about the players. I mean, all you do is throw your jackets on the floor and wear them backwards. I mean, that's it.
Larry Johnson, he's an ex-NBA player. He made a excellent comment, one that I agree on. Larry Johnson said, "Why don't we start our own black league?" And when things like that are said in the African American community, he had rather had been speaking Mandarin, because when he said it, everybody like, what does he mean, start our own league? And that's what I mean. We're so much into entertainment and all this other nonsensical stuff that things that would be beneficial for us, we can't even fathom. So that's why I want to talk about this this environment tonight. What is our role in the ecosystem? What are we to do? I mean, if deer have a certain role in the ecosystem, if eagles have a certain role in the ecosystem, if ants have a certain role in nature, and they're playing their role, what is our role? And what happens when we play our role in the structure of the ecosystem, and what happens when we don't play our role? And I think it's safe to say that we're not playing our role for what we were put here to do, and we're suffering from it today. Rick, did you have anything to add about that, or do you have anything you want to say?
We can just get into the talk if you want to.
Well, give it to us.
Okay. Well, first, let's talk about the so-called ecosystem. What an ecosystem is, and this is not my definition of it, it's just a definition that I found on the internet. It's a community of living organisms, which plants and animals and microbes, in conjunction with the non-living components of their environment, which includes air, water, mineral, and soil, interacting as a system. Okay, the plants, animals, microbes are called biotic components, and the water, mineral, and soil are called abiotic components. And what
could you say that again, Rick?
I said biotic components include the plants, the animals, and the microbes, which, you know, the smaller that you can't see with the naked eye, those organisms. And the abiotic is like water, energy, air, soil, nitrogen, minerals, you know, stuff like that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, and what the abiotic basically goes off the energy, and the energy comes from the sun through light and photosynthesis. That's what gives the abiotic components. And what the biotic components do, the animals, they usually either eat other plants or eat other animals, you know, and so to move matter and energy. And the plants, most of the plants break down matter. They release carbon, and they also influence the quality of plant and microphobia or biomass that's present. And they're based off some external factors that based on what kind of ecosystem you're going to have. And some of those external factors are climate, parent material, which is the type of soil or the topography. Then you got time and potential biota, which is what lives there, what type of life is there. And also can be affected by internal factors. And those include non-native species, like, like they brought a lot of, example would be like cows, pigs, chickens, those type animals that are not indigenous to this land, but that were brought from other places, and have become part of the environment here somewhat. Then you got decomposition, root competition, shading, disturbance, succession, and then the types of species present. And the biggest internal factor to me is humans, so-called humans, because they affect the ecosystem more than anything. And if you don't believe me, ask Egypt.
So what are we asking Egypt?
What happened when they went against their nature and against the laws? What happened to their land, and what happened to their people? They disappeared. They're gone.
Well, everything that you just named, or everything that you just said, the African American don't want to hear that. That's boring. They don't care. This is just from my own take. What you're saying, you might as well be talking in pig Latin, because nobody wants to hear that. So what? So what that the energy comes from the sun? What does that have to do with me? So what running water is good for me? I can go to the liquor store and buy me some bottled water. What is all this? So what? If you're talking to the African American about the ecosystem and nature, they've been living in cages their whole life. How does this translate to them?
Well, here's a question that I like to ask anybody. If and especially people that believe in God and what God done, everybody seems to believe, most people anyway, seems to believe that God created everything. Well, my question is this: if he created all things, why would he put people separate from everything else, in nature? I mean, everything else in nature was created in harmony. Why wouldn't people be created in that same harmony? I mean, that's my question.
No, I understand that. I got that. But you're giving this information to people who are basically cut off from life itself, because on this recent trip I went on, we're just in death mode. So yeah, you trying to get a brother to go out and take all those elements that you say and to build him a shelter. Trying to get us to feed ourselves. Let's say if the food went out, if all the grocery stores closed down, most of us would die out because we wouldn't even know which foods to eat. So on the ecosystem, I mean, they have oil spills damn near every week. We don't care about that. They spraying you with these chemtrails. Brother, we don't even look up. We don't even look up. And when we do look up, we don't care. So, oxygen. You ask the average person with oxygen in, they wouldn't even know. So so this ecosystem that we're in, how are we being displaced in? And you talked about Egypt earlier. Can you give us some examples of what Egypt did to get wiped off this planet? And do we face the fate that they do?
Well, what Egypt did was Egypt went against their own conscious resolve, which they went against their nature and took on the characteristics of the enemy, which was wrong. And the penalties for that was destruction. There's no Egypt anymore. I mean, the land is no good. I mean, it's really nothing but desert. The people that live there, those aren't Egyptians. Those are Arabs. And they're really the true Egyptian, so-called, couldn't even live there anymore because of his own ignorance. And that's exactly what's happening over here.
Okay, so how was nature good for us? Because to be honest, man, most of us are scared of it. Most of us, if you asked most of us to drink out of a running stream high in the mountains, we'd be like, that's nasty. If you I picked some fruit off of a tree one time, and the person I was with asked me, was I gonna wash it off? So in nature, I mean, I understand that we're created by nature, but we're so cut off from it. How would you suggest that you would put encode nature back into the African Americans' way of being? Because it seems like if that doesn't happen, we'll die off. Because the environment that's being created by all these other people that's coming over, and all these other people come over, us. We open arms. Come on in. Bring whatever you want to bring over, and it'll kill off the ecosystem that we live. Like, you can't take the animals over here and let them roam around in Africa or Asia or nothing like that. But it seems that the African American really don't care about nature or the ecosystems. So how would we inculcate into the children and the younger people, so that our lives can keep on going forward?
Okay. First of all, before we get into that, we should go ahead and I'm going to connect you to the ecosystem.
Okay.
I think that should be done first, don't you?
Most indubitably. I just learned that word. That word.
Okay. Okay. What happens is, what connects you to the ecosystem, and it depends on what part of the world that you're in. That's why no one thing comes from one place. That's why you see bears you see grizzly bears, you see black bears, you see polar bears, you see different types of bears, and they live in different environments. Well, that's because of the ecosystem that they live in. The polar bear, he lives up in the north, and he's white because that's his environment. It's snow. He uses that as a camouflage when he's hunting to get his food. He fits in with the nature, with everything around him. Then you got the grizzly bears that you find more south, where there's more vegetation, and they suit in where they fit in. So is the black bears, and people work the same way. And as far as this land called America is concerned, the so-called African American is the original or aboriginal or indigenous people of this land. And if you can see yourself in nature, I mean, all you got to do is go to the forest and see how you blend in with it. I mean, everything, you fit perfectly into it. I mean, you look at the trees. The texture of them reminds you a lot of dreadlocks on a fella's hair. I mean, if you look at the animals, all the animals come in different colors and shades, just like our people. Only full-blooded people can do that. We come in all kinds of shades, just like all the animals, plants, and everything else. We come in all those shades. Other folks don't. I mean, have you ever seen an albino white person or albino Native American? No, because they're not full-blooded people, and they're not people of the earth like we are.
Okay, so let's take trees for instance. Let's take trees. Trees. We get our oxygen, or H2O. Not H2O. I'm sorry. We get oxygen from the trees. When we exhale, the carbon dioxide or the carbon monoxide, whichever one of those is, the trees uses that for whatever it is that they use. With all the trees being cut down, with all of the water, the dams being built, and the water drying up, what effect does that have on us?
The effect it's going to have on us is we're going to start to deteriorate from the inside out. What happens is when the trees that give off all the oxygen for the animals, when you start to cut the trees off, they start to disappear. Then all the animal life is going to start to disappear also. And as far as the so-called African American goes, we need a whole lot more oxygen than other races of people, or so-called races. We need a whole lot more. We need more like a liquid oxygen almost. As a matter of fact, back in the days, and I've mentioned this before, you didn't see, and I'm sure a lot of the older females that's over 50 would vouch with me on this, that they didn't have to go to a hairdresser to get a perm because they had a natural one, because it was coming from all the oxygen that was coming from the trees and from all the aquatic plants and everything that was given off. And they didn't have to do that. They could basically style their hair any way they want to. And I even still see older ladies today that still have very wavy, straight, moist, that have a lot of moisture in their hair. And when you start to cut down the trees, then you cut down the oxygen, then we start to deteriorate, and that is what's happened to us in these past years. And as far as the European goes, he can't survive here either, but he can survive a whole lot longer without oxygen than we can, because he doesn't need that. That's why they're able to climb these tall mountains and stuff. You never hear us up in those high mountains very much because you can barely breathe.
But Rick, when you say that, many African Americans will state that we're all the same. There are many African Americans that'll slap you in the mouth talking about his massa like that, because we are the same. He does the same thing that we do. We got the same blood running through our bodies. And when you say that he needs less oxygen to live up he needs less oxygen than we do. Can you explain that? And could you also explain the liquid oxygen, what you were talking about earlier?
Well, like I said, they don't need the oxygen that we need because they could survive colder climates than we could, basically, and they really don't need the oxygen. We do, because we need moisture. That's part of us being who we are. We have to have a lot of moisture in us, and when that moisture starts to disappear, then we start to deteriorate from, like I said, from the inside out. And so, we have to stop this.
So what you're saying is, being that we're not in our natural ecosystem, so it's like clipping a bird's wings or taking a fish out of water. Being that we're not in our natural habitat, we're not breathing the amount of oxygen, because I can tell you in cities like Los Angeles and a lot of these, the smog is through the roof. So being out of that habitat, what you're seeing that's going on in America now with the so-called African American, that can be attributed to that, just being out of your habitat, living in the artificial one at that.
Yes, it does. I mean, look at all the so-called African Americans that have all these allergies now. That's part of where they come from. From you're not getting the proper amount of oxygen, for there not being a proper vegetation or the proper balance in nature for you to be able to function properly.
Let me ask you this. This is something that. What about all the concrete and all the steel? I know that's nothing natural, but these cities, these major cities that a lot of us live in, they're more like, to me, like cages, because everything is given to you. Your water is given to you. It's not created by nature, so nature isn't creating that. Your food is given to you from a foreign source. That's basically what. So is that why we are killing ourselves off? This is why these hospitals are filled with us. Is that the only reason why? Is it that we are disconnected from the habitat? Because that's what it looks like. Area code 256-849-2227. African Americans ain't African radio. African Americans ain't African radio. What do you say about that, Rick?
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And what you were saying about the as far as the concrete and all that, what effect that has? Yes, that also has an effect, because you're covering up the earth. The earth is no different than any other living thing around. It needs to breathe too. And when you cover it up, which is what you're doing when you're putting down all this asphalt and all this different kinds of concrete that land, across the earth, you are taking away its ability to breathe, and you're also helping the cause of it being less vegetation too, because you have to cut down a lot of trees and a lot of vegetation to be able to build these so-called constructs that we built for people without our interest in mind.
I was talking to a doctor earlier, and she was telling me that African America's asthma rates are through the roof. Just not being able to breathe. Just had one of my neighbors died around me, and brothers are dropping around here like flies. Pneumonia. So aside from us not being in our environment, aside from us eating, I don't even know to even call this food. So when you say that the Egyptians were wiped out, basically we're getting a mirror image of what happened to them is what's happening to us, right? Because what is this? What they get?
The Egyptians were not wiped out because somebody was shooting them or killing them or anything like that. They were wiped out because they just went up against their conscious resolve, and their land and everything was destroyed. And that's exactly what's happening over here now. As you see, Life rates have been going down in past years. I mean, everything is just and it's going to continue unless we connect back to our true nature, just like every other living thing on this planet does. The only thing that don't go against the law, that go against the laws of nature, are humans and any animals that has had any kind of contact with humans.
Now, Rick, when you say conscious resolve, can you explain what that means?
That means being in tune with your natural state of being, abiding by the laws of nature, doing what you were here to create, what you were here created for. That's what I mean.
So everything that we see, everything that we see us doing around us, it can't be attributed. It's not attributed that we're stupid or dumb or anything. We're just disconnected from our habitat.
Yeah, we're disconnected from our habitat. Nobody. We have forgotten all of what we were created here for. We forgot all that we are connected, just like every other living creature on this earth is. We are connected to this earth too, and to this to this universe. And we have forgotten that, and we're not going. And we continue to be like we are. We're going to lose it, and we're going to be just like the Egyptians, non-extinct.
Okay, well,
extinct.
You said extinct. Well, we have a few callers on the line. We have a few callers on the line, and wow, it's any callers have anything to add to this conversation? We're talking about the ecosystem and nature and how the African American fits into it. And I just did a cross country trip from Birmingham, Alabama to Phoenix, Arizona, and stopped in a couple of states on the way back. And if you look at our young people, it's ugly. It's ugly. So what do we do? What do we do about that? I know we can sit around and talk about it, but what is this done? If you go to the African Americans Ain't African page on Facebook, I just posted you have 15 brothers and sisters who are out there doing stuff for the environment, and maybe you can check some of them out and get some ideas on how we can get some of this environmental, be more conscious of the environment, because like Rick says, it's like our conscious resolve is at the bottom. So any callers have anything they want to add? Okay, Rick, so one of the things that I noticed, Rick, is like, let's go camping. Man, there's bears out there. Let's go swimming in the lake. You don't know what's in that water. Let's go for a little canoe ride. Those type things. And while I was on this trip, I was watching a lot of TV, something that I really don't do. And they have commercials where people are just in America jumping off cliffs, climbing mountains, and everything they're doing with nature. All the commercials, everything that they're trying to sell, they're trying to connect that with nature. But you never see us in there. Is that by design, or are we just not nature people? Or are we just been trained not to go nowhere near nature?
Yeah, it is by design, and yes, we were trained to be that way because that wasn't our natural instinct. Like I said in earlier shows, the forest is our natural environment. There was once upon a time there were trees everywhere, and we were right in the middle of them, living with all the other creatures on this earth, and we've gotten away from that. Now, we hide from nature. I mean, you never believe, how scared of things people are. I mean, people scared of stuff that's that's 1,000 times smaller than them. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But what about the environment, Rick? There's all kind of environmental disasters going on, oil spills, trains are tripping over with oil spills. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he was saying Alabama is the dumping ground, how they just dump garbage in a hole, fill the hole up, cover it up, and then build houses on it, and we'll be the first ones to go out and spend thousands of dollars on this house because we don't even search or do any research on the area that we're moving into. But the environmental thing is something that I see that we don't that's not in the main forethought of what we're doing, and for especially our children. You know, one of the things I know about African Americans, they always claim that they have love for their children, but everything that they tell their children to do or give to their children is anti-life. And when I say anti-life, I mean anti-nature.
Yes, I agree. I look at some of my people, and they don't even leave. A lot of them don't even leave the house. I mean, their fingers get more exercise than any other part of their body. I mean, I look at that and I just say, oh man, we've come a long way. Because I've been fortunate enough that in this world long enough to see when people were a whole lot more in tune with nature. And I think it was a whole lot better then than it is now, even though I might not have thought that back then.
A lady had a question, or a lady had something to add?
No, I did want to make a comment. When you talk about why it is that the so-called African American does not want to be connected to nature or feel that nature of the ecosystem is extremely important, is to me is because they are so indoctrinated into being consumers. So quite naturally, when you have that level of supply and demand out there, we are huge contributors to that. With the deforestation, just paper alone, there has been 400% paper usage increase over the last 40 years, and that's just here in this country. So when you talk about how people allowing things to happen to their environments and not weighing in on it, I have a horrific example in Central America. There are cruise ships, and I've seen this firsthand. I was there. There are cruise ships that as they are cruising along, they are dumping their garbage into the Caribbean Sea. And this garbage washes up on the beaches. Now, where they're dumping the garbage is where the indigenous people live, not where the resorts are. So as you're walking through different villages, all you see all along the beach is trash. And I talked to some of the business owners, the indigenous people in that area, and I'm like, wow, you guys probably would have a heck of a lot more business if you just clean up your beaches. And they're like, we clean them. It's the cruise ships that are dumping that trash and it's washing ashore. And you literally see even logos from the cruise ships, little chips and bits of plastic and paper that has been beaten by the waves, it washes ashore. So, I mean, it's just so much that's going on out there in terms of people, period, not having respect for the, not having respect for the environment, but also those who don't say anything about what's happening to their immediate environment. Because there's no movements there to do anything about the cruise lines.
Yes, and when you talk about, when you say 400, you said, ma'am, 400% increase in paper usage in the last
Correct.
40 years?
Over 40 years. And bear in mind that these paper mills, they require a lot of water. So a lot of these corporations, these paper corporations, I used to work for this company by the name of International Paper. Yes, I'm throwing them out there and putting them on blast. They actually build their paper mills on waterways like your lakes and your rivers. And the reason for doing it, again, they need the water to wash the trees, right? To wash the wood. They bleach it. Now, of course, that's how they turn the paper white. So what happens is when this chlorine that they're using to bleach that paper, bleach those trees out to make paper, that chlorine spills off into our waterways. And it creates this thing, it's like a type of algae, but it's a parasitical type of algae that grows in there, like a, what do you call it, like a phytoplankton, something like that. And what this algae does is it is a huge consumer of oxygen. And what it's doing is not only is it just devastating the lakes and rivers by these paper mills, but it's also consuming so much oxygen out the water that it's actually killing off species of animals and good bacteria and microorganisms that are in the waterways, making our water what? Polluted, making our water non-usable, making us not be able to be sustainable in our own environment, in our own ecosystem, which, by the way, I totally agree with Rick Moon that, yes, we are a part of this ecosystem. We are a part of it. So there's just so many things that's going on with the devastation and the deforestation of the planet. And I totally agree with you guys in terms of a desert scenario fall into play, because we are terribly, terribly off balance. We have upset the entire balance of the planet. The entire planet is unhealthy. So if your ecosystem that you live in is unhealthy, that is why we are dying off in droves.
So, man, when you talk about the waterways, that's just basically when you're saying these paper companies are polluting these waterways. That's really, in essence, a microcosm of what's happening to us.
Absolutely.
256-84.
Exactly.
256-849-2227. African Americans and African Radio, sir. Exactly. You had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, this is Dr. Mumbo Jumbo.
Hey, and Dr. Mumbo.
With the last point you made, the dialogue that we're cut off from nature, right? We physically are nature. We are the same life system as Mama Earth, and actually, our bodies are like a microcosm of Mama Earth's body, right?
Right.
We have an infinite number. We couldn't even count all the different life systems, all the different microorganisms that live in our body, in our habitat, right? In our bodies, our physical bodies have all different kinds of animals, and from parasites to different things that, get rid of the dead skin and all that kind of stuff like that. We are a living organism just like Mama Earth. And we still have a lot of this colonial intellect. It's still hard for us to appreciate the simple design of a life system where we're just like Mama Earth. Mama Earth's a bigger system than us. And then the solar system is a bigger system than Mama Earth. And it just keeps expanding out, but it's the same relationship of energy exchange, in all of that. So when we make discussions and we act like we're not nature, we are still nature. We're still the habitat. And one of the reasons that it's tough for us to appreciate the larger habitat is because we don't respect ourselves as nature. So if you don't respect yourself as nature, then it's really difficult for you to expect anything that's outside of your physical body as nature, deserving that same respect too. So we basically treat our habitat just like we treat our bodies.
So like you say, we are little Earths amongst ourselves. Okay, so just like the Earth needs the moon, just like the Earth may need all the other planets and everything that's out there in the universe that the earth needs and draws from. What I mean by that we're disconnected from that is like, if you're going to call us the earth, if we let's as an example, we're the earth. So now we don't have no connection to the moon, even though we do.
But stop. Well, let me check. We are still physically connected to the earth. But like I said, we might not be emotionally connected in our awareness, but we're still emotionally connected to it. We're just not intellectually in our awareness connected to it. Because if we're not connected physically to the earth, then how are we living? How are we existing? Where are we at? We're not living on Pluto. We're not living on Mars.
But existing and living. Right, but existing
what?
and living are two different things.
Coexisting. I even say existing. I'm not talking about thriving. I'm talking about we are still Earth. We still live on Earth. We are still physically attached to the Earth. All I'm saying is when we use the thing that I'm just saying it's the only reason because English is such a horrible language to communicate this stuff in. But when we say we're not connected to nature, that's not really true. Because we could not be more connected physically to the earth than we are. Our spirits are clothed with earth clay. Our bodies are filled with earth water. We breathe earth air. So we are physically connected to the earth.
Do we? Now, so let's take a city like Los Angeles. You have 20 million people living in the city. Most of those people, especially the so-called African American, comes from other places. You living in a city that's an artificial city, which means it doesn't have all the beaches are polluted. It's like the young lady was saying earlier about how they're dumping all this stuff. The oxygen is she was saying earlier about the asthma and what we're breathing and all these ailments that we have. I understand that we connected to it. I got that, but what we are doing, how we're living while we're here, I'm sorry, we're not. It's like we're in death throes.
No, I agree. We're emotionally we're emotionally messed up. I mean, we're emotionally dysfunctional. 100%. We are emotionally dysfunctional. So rather than us, like use the city of Los Angeles. So rather, as opposed to us being like the health.
Huh?
Pardon?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Dr. Mumbo.
As opposed to us in Los Angeles, the people that are in Los Angeles, as opposed to us for standing against the onslaught of the pollution and the onslaught of the consumerism and the materialism and all the unhealthy stuff that's going on. So why do you think that there's still pockets of us that left there, if not to resist that and to counteract that? You know, that is our purpose, and that gets back to culturally, we've lost our prime identity with what like Rick said at the beginning, what our function is in the habitat, what we are about. And so it's like our collective purpose. I think we focus so much sometimes on what we aren't, or the trauma that we've gone through, is that it's almost, those things are almost distractions as to what our function in the body of Mama Earth is and what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be like the healthy cells. We're supposed to be like the healthy cells that fight off the cancer, or fight off the cannibalization of, our lung or something by cancer. We're supposed to be the healthy cells that fight all that pollution, all that destruction off by functioning in a healthy way and finding ways to combat that onslaught. But collectively, we don't have that identity anymore. And collectively, that identity has kind of been colonized out of us, and it's been colonized out of us in a very systematic, methodical way. Like Rick said, you take woodland people out of the forest, they're not going to function as well. One of my theories is that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
No, I think a lot of brothers and sisters are always anxious so much. I think because of our brains You know, we were out of the forest, 400 years, maybe 300 years, 200 years, maybe. In these cities for 200 years, 250 years, and we're basically in oxygen deprivation. Our mind and our brains are still like, where's the oxygen? Where's the oxygen? And that's one of the reasons we're always so stressed. We're always sort of on edge.
Yeah.
Because we don't know why. But if you would get into a nice forest that doesn't have that many wires and power lines, you'd be amazed how quickly your whole body would relax if you could get out of the colonial fear from the brainwashing that a bug or a mosquito is going to hurt you.
So Doc, what is it going to take? So Doc, what is it going to take to get us or move us in that direction of that? Because
my simplified theory is that every problem that's caused by fear, the antidote to that fear is love. So every problem that the root cause is fear, the only way you mitigate that is by sharing love. That's the only way you mitigate that. There's no other way to. You can't overcome fear with money or violence or something like that. That's just not how the energy flows of things work. So if you're going to replace fear, take fear out, and put something healthier in there, a vibration of love, you have to repair. You have to repair that thing that's not functioning in love. And when I say love, I mean a harmonious balance with Mama Earth's nature and healthy things like that. So you have to share love, plant love, men love, and receive love. It's like simple. And the point that we're at, being so emotionally disconnected, we have to do practical things. Just like I said before, we have to spend time outside in nature. That is a critical thing. We can't get around that. If we think we are going to change significantly our impact and our lifespan, our viability as a life system, spending more time on Facebook and the internet than we do out in nature, we're misguided. That's a false hope. It's just not going to work like that. It's just not practical. It doesn't work like that. The only way we're going to be emotionally, it's like if you want to have a relationship with your partner, your coupling partner, if you have a relationship, if you don't spend any time with that person, it's hard for that relationship to grow. True?
Yep.
You have to spend time for that relationship to grow.
But it seems that when it comes to nature, when it comes to the environment, we're scared of that.
But you know what? That's why I get back to the brothers. The brothers have to create the safe culture, the safe activities for the sisters to go back in there. It's sort of like a catch-22. It's like the brothers can't, because all this fear and all this emotional healing that needs to be done. The sisters are going to take they have more powers than we have, and more emotional sophistication than we have. So they can do a lot better job at healing it than we can. But they can't even release that healing energy in nature because they're a microcosm of the earth, of Mama Earth. So until we create that culture where it's safe for them to go back into nature, the activities where it's fun, it's not dangerous, it's not foreign, until we do that, then we can't unleash their power, their feminine energy, just like Mama Earth has. It's like if you have a baby in the womb, right? When the baby's in the womb, when the fetus is in the womb, the fetus gets everything from its mother, right? It gets its nutrition, its liquid, its nourishment, even its oxygen. All of that comes from the womb of the mother, right? Now, the only thing the father contributed was that sperm. But after that, the environment that baby lives in that first life, is all inside the mother. So it's just like that. So then after that first birth, our second birth is we go from our birth mother to our earth mother. And now we're in Mother Nature. And so just like as a fetus can't survive outside of the womb of their birth mother, we can't survive outside the womb of our earth mother. That's why even if you go out of space, you have to take air with you. You have to take food with you. You can't exist outside of the birth mother. Now, after after we leave this earth and we go to the next life, I ain't going to even talk about that, but I'm just talking about the practical, urgent things that we have right now. So we have to learn to appreciate and respect where we are. I mean, practical stuff. If you go outside, every day you go outside, try to pick up some trash and recycle it responsibly. Don't just walk over trash and act like you don't have any responsibility to the habitat and to the environment if you call yourself indigenous. And also, if your self-identification is an indigenous of the Americas, and you see all this other stuff, I don't care whose fault it is. I don't care all the stuff they brought over here. I don't really care who caused the problem. But who is going to fix the problem? If we don't fix the problem, who is going to fix it? It's like if you had a house, Kerry, you live in a house, and then somebody comes in, they kill out your people, they put you in some chains and stuff, and you're a servant, and then eventually you get out, and then, the house, and then the children die off, but you still live in this house, and then at some point you say, okay, well, it's been 3 generations, and they're still here messing up, tearing up the house. I think we're just going to go up in the attic, and we're just going to stay in the attic and just stay to ourselves. You ain't going to survive in the attic if everybody's still downstairs destroying the first 2 floors in the basement. We have to get to the point where we're influencing the other human beings on this planet, where we are the example of harmony and love and treating the earth with respect.
And that's the way it gotta be. Area code 256-849-2227. African Americans Ain't African Radio. We're talking about the environment and the ecosystem that the African American lives in. Any more callers on the line that has anything they want to add?
Let me ask you one question, Terry. Let me ask you one question, because my question I start out every day is, how will you share love today with the habitat, which includes people?
How do I share love today?
Every day, the thing I meditate on every day, I say, how am I going to share love today with the habitat, and I'm including people in the habitat? Am I going to be meditating to share something, share love, mend love, give love, or receive love? And every day, if you have to think, what are you going to do for the habitat? You personally. Because these big movements, if you have a colonial perspective on movement, we're so colonizing our thinking, and we think that everything happens by this big organization. It has to happen organizationally and not organically.
Well, that's what right, but that's how we're trained. That's what I mean about the artificiality of it all. That's what we're trained. We're trained to be a part of this and not a part of Mama Earth, as you say. Be a part of this. So that you're absolutely right. So if we're trained, you got to be a part of this organization. When I could just clean up around my neighborhood.
Exactly. But see, that's what I'm saying. But all that training is just a story. That's all it is a story.
No, I understand. I understand. I got you that it's a story. You're absolutely right. But isn't that what I'm saying is removing us from what we need to be connected to? Isn't that
exactly? No, it's removing us from our behaviors of how we're supposed to interact with the habitat. We're still connected to it, but it's definitely making us dysfunctional in the habitat. It's making us destructive in the habitat. But at the same time, it's just a story. All that training is just a story. That's why I say it's all just mumble jumble. Mm-hmm. So we can keep reiterating all of the bad stories that they tell us that cause all this, or we could spend that same energy and tell stories that heal us and heal the habitat.
So.
And Doctor, I totally agree with everything that you are saying. You're absolutely right. And I recall a show that Buck had previously where we did talk about baby steps in terms of how we start caring about our own environment, where we lay our head, where we raise our children, work, eat, and sleep. Absolutely. But in the same sentence, and again, that is an initial start. But there's still other things that I think that also needs to be looked at, and that is pushing back on some of these corporations that are actually at the forefront of a lot of these ills that we are experiencing. And we don't have to have a major movement or revolution or whatever. It's just about taking that personal responsibility not to participate in those events that help with the destruction of the earth. Stop participating in it. Stop being a consumer. If those corporations don't have a demand, they're going to cease to producing that supply. And we all know how much money our folks spend on all these consumables, and they're all disposable consumables. And that's where a lot of these poisons are trickling off into our soil, contaminating everything, our airways, our beaches, just everything. Stop buying it. That's my take on, and that's what I do. So,
and I agree with you, sister, that people who have a certain level of awareness and personal responsibility and feel responsible for the habitat are involved in things like that. They are involved in things like that. Green labeling, genetic modified foods, earth justice, food justice, environmental justice, all those things like that, fighting the pipeline. People who have feel that level of responsibility for the habitats are doing those things. But I agree with you 100%. What I was saying, per Carrie's point, is when the vast majority of us don't even have that level, we don't feel that that's our responsibility. And because we don't feel it's our responsibility, because we're emotionally not connected to it, that's why I think we don't take those actions, and that's why we're not doing those things, even joining with other people that are already doing those things. So my only perspective is saying that people should be doing things. It's like I try to expect from people what I observe. If I see you doing that, my assumption is whatever I see you doing is the best that you can be doing with what you know and what you have. That's my assumption. What I see is what I get. If I see you doing something destructive to the habitat or dysfunctional, then I look at it, okay, you have some sort of deficit of love that needs to be healed. And that's what I'm saying. So when I talk about getting back in nature, taking more personal responsibility, I'm saying that is going to awaken you. Treating yourself as nature, at least just hydrating, at least just drinking enough water. Just staying and not drinking soda pop and just or alcohol. Don't get me started on fire water. Any indigenous people drinking fire water, really check out the indigenous people's cards. But just basically spec stuff. And then the more we do that individually, the more we're going to be able to do that collectively. Because sometimes, just like you said, it's that personal responsibility that starts, and then we join with other people. And I mean, the other thing is, again, this colonial mentality, we think that it's stuff that we have to do. That it's all our energy. It's all our effort. And sometimes we lose sight that we are one of Mama Earth's life systems put here for a healthy purpose. And that those frequencies, it's just like if you have, I don't know another word, but if you have like an infection in your body, then your white blood count goes out. Of course, I would wonder why they call them white, but I know why they call them white, because they label everything. But if you have an infection, or if you get a cold, your white blood cell goes out, and your white blood cells go, and they fight that infection off. That's just how Earth organisms function. It's the same thing with Mama Earth. So, and those individual cells it's not one individual cell's responsibilities to fight off the whole infection, but it's that one cell's responsibility to respond and just do its one part. and act as a whole system, a collective, as an immune system. And we're just not acting as a system because too many of us individually identify as individuals. That's part of the whole colonization brainwashing process.
I think that's the main problem. What you think, Rick?
I agree. 100%.
You know, I just wanted to get a little bit in here. Dr. Mumbo Jumbo and everyone else who has commented, I appreciate your comments. It's quite enlightening. And I also want to add, because I do agree for the most part, I've actually had come to the conclusion that, yeah, we are a part of the earth. I mean, how could we survive if we were not? We don't take ownership of what our responsibilities are to the earth. Is probably very similar to what Dr. Mumbo Jumbo was alluding to earlier. And although we do have the ability to do our part, I don't know if the majority of people really know what it is that they can do. And one of the things that I want to say, Dr. Mumbo Jumbo, you said, don't walk by the paper, pick it up. I do that in my community. How many of you all know your neighbors? How many of you all can come together with your neighbors and say, hey, let's get together and let's just clean our street up. Let's do it once a week. Let's just go through and clean up the curbside. That's something that you can do tomorrow. It's not something that you got to plan out. Go by door to door and say, hey, we're going to meet Saturday morning or whenever, at what time, and we're going to take one block at a time. Whatever it takes. Take pride in where you live. You are responsible for where you live. You are responsible. And that little bit, you just don't know what it could do for the people in your area. Because when you live in a cluttered environment, it is when you have a cluttered mind. Check out the mindset of people who live in those environments that are dirty, that are not well kept. I just had to get that in. I know we're going to be ending soon, but I just wanted to put that out there. There is something that you can do, and it doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take that much effort. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Rick, what you want to end this with, Rick?
I just want to say one thing that we need to start doing is we got to learn our heritage too, along with a lot of what Dr. Mumbo Jumbo was saying. But we have to learn our heritage, because if you don't know where you've been, you'll never get there. And by us letting somebody else take over our identity, and we still looking, that's got to change. I mean, the question I ask is, how beneficial has it been to you being an African? Has that created any kind of unity? And I'm going to tell you, if you don't have any heritage, you will never have any unity. And that's just one thing that we got to start thinking about, and we got to change this. And with that, I just want to say good night, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show.
I want to end with this. I'm a realist. The reality of it all. I'm not one of those kind of guys that be like, well, maybe if we do this. Nah. The reality is that we're being wiped out. Now, it might sound hurtful, it might sound ugly, but the reality is, and I'm not just talking about these brothers and sisters killing each other in the street. I'm talking about our behavior, period. And this is just walking around my neighborhood. Like Dr. Mumbo Jumbo say, we better be that example to show, because the environment that we are living in does not sustain life. And I want to give everybody a video to check out. You have to see this video. The Contradictions of Fair Hope. The Contradictions of Fair Hope. The Contradictions of Fair Hope. I tried to look it up on YouTube. You probably can find it on a Google channel or something. But the Contradictions of Fair Hope shows what happened when an indigenous community when their children go out into the world, and that where these people are buried, the earth that these people are buried on, what those children do when they come back to that earth. Called The Contradiction of Fair Hope. Maybe one day we'll do a show on it, but it will blow you out the water. So I thank everybody for listening tonight, and remember, like Dr. Mumble Jumble say, we are a part of this earth, and we better start acting like it. Thursday night, we're going to have a co-host show. We're going to have a brother. He's an ex-Moor. Confessions of an Ex-Moor Thursday night. Check this out. This is going to be off the hook. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Go out in your day and somebody pick up a bottle or a can, or come over here to Birmingham, Alabama, and help me pick up some of this trash over here, because I'll be out doing it tomorrow. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.